When the world gets louder and every opinion around you tries to dictate your peace, there comes a moment when you realize that power isn't found in reacting, it's found in mastering your response. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to prove your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you, and you don't have to drain your energy trying to manage every distraction that rises against your focus. There is a deeper strength that comes from being anchored internally rather than swayed externally. When you understand that your peace is your responsibility, you stop giving permission to chaos to live rent-free in your mind. You begin to train yourself not to be unbothered out of coldness or pride, but out of discipline, out of stewardship of your purpose, and out of clarity about where you are going. Because every distraction has one assignment: to delay your destiny. And every time you choose silence over reaction, focus over noise, and discipline over impulse, you declare that your destiny is too important to be negotiated with distractions disguised as urgency. There is a version of you that is calm even when everything around you is demanding a reaction, and stepping into that version doesn't happen by accident. It happens by training your spirit to rise above the noise. There are moments in life when emotions flare up, reactions feel justified, and silence feels like surrender, but true discipline is learning that not every emotion deserves expression. Emotions are indicators, not dictators, and training yourself to be unbothered begins with recognizing the difference between feeling something and needing to act on it. Distractions often come cleverly disguised as emotional triggers, pulling you into arguments, comparisons, and validation, seeking cycles that drain your energy and delay your progress. When you don't discipline your emotions, your focus becomes fragmented and you find yourself busy but not productive, active but not aligned. The goal is not to suppress what you feel, but to master it so completely that no external force can hijack your internal stability. There is power in pausing, in breathing, in choosing a response that aligns with your purpose, rather than reacting in a way that satisfies a temporary emotion. Every time you choose restraint over reaction, you strengthen your authority over your emotions, and authority over emotion is a prerequisite for authority over destiny, because destiny requires focus, and focus requires emotional discipline. You cannot build something great while constantly pausing to respond to every distraction that demands your attention. Emotions like anger, frustration, insecurity, and offense are normal, but when left undisciplined, they become access points for distraction. The moment you allow someone else's energy to dictate your mood, you hand over control of your peace. Training yourself to be unbothered is not about pretending you don't feel. It's about feeling deeply but staying committed to your vision more than your reaction. It is choosing not to let temporary emotions create permanent damage. There will always be noise, always be opinions, always be opportunities to argue or defend yourself. But discipline teaches you to invest your emotional energy only where it produces growth. When you understand that emotional reactions cost you time, focus, and mental clarity, you begin to budget your emotions the same way you would budget your finances, careful not to overspend where there is no return on investment. People who are easily distracted are often emotionally undisciplined, jumping from one reaction to another without filtering whether it aligns with their bigger picture. The path to destiny is narrow, not because opportunities are scarce, but because distractions are many. Training your emotions means building an inner system that checks your reactions before they escape your mouth, your screen, or your decisions. It means asking yourself, will this matter tomorrow? Will this move me forward or pull me back? When you start evaluating your emotional responses through the lens of purpose, you begin to conserve your energy for what truly matters. Your emotions are powerful, but power without discipline becomes chaos. Discipline transforms emotional energy into focused momentum, and that momentum becomes the force that pushes you through moments others get stuck in. There is a difference between feeling offended and choosing to be offended. There is a difference between noticing negativity and choosing to absorb it. Emotional discipline is the gap between what happened and how you decide to respond. In that gap lies your growth, your maturity, and your strength. The more you train yourself to pause before reacting, the more authority you gain over your atmosphere. Environments don't change because emotions flare. They change because discipline enters the room. When your emotions are under discipline, you become unshakable, not because life is easy, but because you refuse to let distractions move you from your position. That is the posture of someone who is focused, someone who has decided that destiny is more valuable than being right in an argument or proving a point to someone who isn't even connected to their purpose. Discipline your emotions and your focus will follow, because where your emotions go, your energy flows, and where your energy flows, your life grows. Urgency and distraction often look identical on the surface, both demanding immediate attention, both pulling on your emotions, both whispering that if you don't respond right now, you are losing something important. But maturity is learning to discern that not everything that feels urgent is purposeful. Distractions are crafted to create illusion of urgency, to make you believe that something needs your immediate reaction when in truth it only needs your silence. Training yourself to be unbothered requires developing the ability to pause and ask, is this truly urgent? Or is it simply loud? Because noise will always disguise itself as importance, and without discernment, you will keep abandoning what matters for what only feels pressing in the moment. Every time you rush to react, you interrupt the flow of your purpose with interruptions that don't deserve the authority to shift your focus. You can lose hours, days, even years responding to fake urgencies that were never meant to occupy your mind in the first place. There is a peace that comes from refusing to be rushed by distractions. Distractions operate like alarms, constantly going off to provoke anxiety, guilt, or fear of missing out. They feed on your desire to be seen, to be understood, to be included, and they manipulate that desire to pull you out of alignment with your true assignment. When something is truly urgent and connected to your purpose, it brings clarity, not chaos. It produces direction, not confusion. True urgency aligns with your calling and moves you forward, while distraction masquerades as urgency but leaves you drained, emotionally cluttered, and spiritually disconnected. When you begin to evaluate urgency through the lens of purpose, you stop living in reaction mode and start living in intention. People who cannot discern urgency from distraction end up living exhausted, constantly responding but rarely progressing. Distractions will always be there, but they only gain power when you treat them with the same priority as your calling. You cannot give everything the same level of emotional access and expect to remain focused. When you don't establish clear boundaries for your time and attention, everything begins to feel like an emergency, and that constant pressure steals your peace. Real urgency carries a quiet conviction, not a frantic demand. It doesn't shout, it guides. It doesn't push you into anxiety, it pulls you into alignment. If something forces you into a reactive state and pulls you away from your purpose, it is not urgent. It is a distraction wearing urgency's clothes. The enemy of destiny is not always obvious opposition. Sometimes it is disguised as opportunity, conversation, or emotional engagement that feels important but carries no fruit. Learning to filter urgency requires stillness. You cannot discern properly when your soul is noisy. Stillness is not inactivity, it is clarity. It is stepping back mentally and emotionally to ask, does this align with where I am going? Without that pause, you will always feel pressured to respond, to explain, to fix, to prove, to correct, to participate in conversations that have nothing to do with your calling. You are not obligated to respond to everything that calls your name. You are not required to involve yourself in every conflict that tries to summon your attention. Maturity is realizing that some things only survive if you feed them with your reaction, and the most powerful move you can make is to deprive them of access to your peace. People who know their purpose have a different relationship with urgency. They understand that destiny has its own tempo, and distractions are designed to disrupt that rhythm. They move with intention, not impulse. They don't let emotional triggers dictate their schedule or their confidence. You train yourself to be unbothered by recognizing that reacting to every false urgency is a misuse of your time and energy. Every moment spent proving a point is a moment stolen from your progress. Every reaction given to distraction is an investment in delay. Your time is a currency, and distractions will always try to make you bankrupt by convincing you to spend it on what feels urgent, but produces no return. Discernment is a discipline. It is choosing not to be moved by pressure, but to be led by purpose. When you stop answering every emotional call that presents itself as urgent, You reclaim authority over your focus. You begin to walk with a different posture, one that is steady, selective, and strategic. Not everything that demands your attention deserves your presence. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to think. You are allowed to ignore what does not align. That is how you train your spirit to rise above urgency, driven distractions, and remain anchored in purpose. There is a deep exhaustion that comes from constantly trying to explain your purpose to people who were never assigned to understand it. When you live needing validation, you become dependent on external affirmation to move forward, and that dependency becomes a silent distraction that drains your focus. Not everyone has the capacity, vision, or spiritual sensitivity to recognize what you carry, and that is not a reflection of your purpose, but a limitation of their perspective. Purpose is often misunderstood because it does not always make sense in its early stages. People may question your silence, your distance, your decisions, your focus, because they are observing through the lens of familiarity, not destiny. When you keep trying to make them see it, you pause your journey just to convince them, and in doing so, you accidentally place their opinion as a checkpoint on your road to purpose. It is not your responsibility to make others comfortable with your calling. Your purpose does not need permission to exist. The constant need to explain is often rooted in a fear of being misunderstood or judged, but greatness requires being comfortable with both. Trying to articulate divine direction to people who only understand natural reasoning will leave you frustrated. Some people are meant to witness your results, not understand your process. When you finally accept that, you release yourself from the emotional weight of explanation. You begin moving differently, not with arrogance, but with quiet assurance that your assignment is between you and God, not you and public opinion. Explanation is often a trap, a subtle invitation to divert your focus toward convincing rather than becoming. There is a peace that comes when you stop sending emotional invitations for others to validate your decisions. You won't always be able to articulate what you're building while you're still building it. Some seasons require silence, not because you are uncertain, but because you are focused. Purpose has a language, and not everyone is fluent. Trying to translate your vision into words that people with no spiritual alignment can accept will only reduce it to something small enough for them to understand. Destiny requires you to protect the integrity of your vision from being watered down by the need to be liked, affirmed, or applauded. You are not behind just because you are quiet. Silence in purpose is not absence, it is incubation. Many powerful moves happen in silence, without explanation, without announcement, without applause. When you consistently stop to explain yourself, you lose momentum. Every explanation opens the door for opinions, and if you are not careful, opinions become influence. Influence becomes hesitation, and hesitation becomes delay. What starts as a simple question from someone can turn into an internal battle where you begin wondering if you should shrink your purpose to make others comfortable. But shrinking never produces peace. You do not owe your purpose to anyone. You owe obedience to your calling. There is a maturity that grows in you when you realize that not everyone will support you, and that is okay. Support is optional. Calling is not. You can move even when others don't agree. You can build even when others don't see. You can progress even when no one claps. That is what it means to train yourself to be unbothered by misunderstanding. Your purpose is not a public project. It is a divine assignment, and divine assignments are often misunderstood in their early stages because they don't look like the final picture. People often criticize what they don't understand and question what they cannot control. The need to constantly explain yourself is often a response to someone else's discomfort with your growth. But you are not responsible for managing their discomfort. You are responsible for stewarding your calling with focus and obedience. Some people will only understand once the fruit begins to show, and by then, you will be too focused on purpose to need their acknowledgement. There is freedom in moving silently, freedom in letting your results speak louder than your explanations, freedom in allowing your transformation to be your response. When you stop explaining your purpose, you take your energy back, you take your peace back, you take your time back. You reclaim mental clarity and emotional strength that would have been wasted trying to convince people to see what only destiny can reveal. Your purpose becomes lighter when you stop dragging other people's approval into it. This is how you train yourself to become unbothered, not by isolation, but but by alignment, not by hardness, but by focus, not by trying to be understood, but by choosing to be obedient to the call that was never a conference call to begin with. Silence is not weakness. It is strategy. It is not retreat. It is refinement. When distractions come, they are rarely silent. They come loud, provoking, demanding a reaction that pulls you out of alignment. But when you learn to master silence, you break the cycle that distractions depend on to survive. Some battles don't require your voice. They require your restraint. Silence is not about ignoring reality. It is about choosing not to give unnecessary situations the energy they need to grow. Because every time you speak into something that does not deserve your breath, you breathe life into it. And distractions feed on your reaction. Without your engagement, they lose influence, momentum, and power over your emotions. Many people believe that responding makes them stronger. But real strength is often displayed in the ability to remain unmoved. Silence is not the absence of power, it is controlled power. It is choosing not to expend energy where it brings no fruit. When you speak into every conflict, correct every misunderstanding, and respond to every attack, you scatter your focus. Silence gathers it back. It brings your energy inward, reminding you that not every voice deserves a reply and not every noise deserves acknowledgement. There is a deep peace that comes when you no longer feel obligated to react to everything that tries to provoke you. You become dangerous to distraction when you no longer rise to every invitation to argue, defend, or explain. Some distractions appear in the form of people who want to pull you into emotional battles just to prove a point or get a reaction from you. They don't actually want resolution, they want engagement. And the moment you engage, you've already surrendered your peace. Silence is your refusal to participate in cycles that steal your time and drain your spirit. It is your declaration that your focus is too valuable to be wasted on battles that lead nowhere. When you choose silence, you are not bowing out. You are rising above. You are saying, my purpose is my answer. My growth is my response. There is nothing louder than the sound of someone who keeps moving forward without explaining themselves. Silence is also a guard over your emotions. Words spoken in reaction carry a weight that can shift entire seasons of your life. A single emotional response can create unnecessary conflict, closed doors, and delays. Silence creates space between what you feel and what you release. It gives you time to evaluate, to breathe, to align your response with wisdom rather than emotion. When you master silence, you master timing, and timing is everything. Speaking at the wrong time can destroy what patience could have protected. Silence trains you to respond when your spirit is ready, not when your emotions are triggered. That discipline separates the reactive from the focused, the scattered from the steady. Silence does not mean you don't see what is happening. It means you refuse to let what is happening dictate your movement. There will always be noise. There will always be opinions, rumors, misunderstandings, and distractions designed to provoke you. But you must remember that provocation is a tactic to pull you out of your position. Distractions want you to abandon your post just to prove a point. But when you remain silent, you remain in position. You choose purpose over provocation. You choose assignment over argument. And purpose always rewards those who protect it with discipline. People may misinterpret your silence. They may call it pride, distance, or even weakness. But that is because they do not understand the difference between reaction and strategy. Your silence will confuse those who expected you to respond the way you used to. Silence is a sign that you are no longer living to be understood. You are living to be aligned. It is a mark of transformation, a sign that your identity is rooted deeper than the need to defend it publicly. The older version of you may have fought every battle, responded to every challenge, and tried to correct every false perception, but the focused version of you understands that your destiny is too significant to be spent in meaningless debate. Your silence is not empty. It is full of strength, full of direction, full of clarity. It says more than your words ever could because it communicates that you have nothing to prove and everything to build. Silence is not avoidance, it is preservation. It preserves your peace, your energy, your clarity, and your time. When you master silence, you become unbothered, not because you don't feel the pull of distraction, but because you have trained your spirit to value progress over reaction. And when progress becomes your language, silence becomes your power. There is a strength that only comes from within, a stability that does not depend on circumstances being calm, but on you being grounded. When you build inner stability, you stop expecting life to be peaceful for you to have peace. Instead, you become the source of peace in the midst of life's storms. Distractions lose their power when they can no longer shake your internal world. Many people are stable as long as everything around them is stable, but the moment pressure rises, they crumble emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Inner stability means you are anchored from within, not tossed around by every change, conflict, or emotional wave that comes your way. It is a maturity that says, I can feel pressure, but I don't have to fold under it. Because pressure will always test what you are built on. If your stability is built on approval, it will collapse when people disapprove. If it is built on comfort, it will crumble when life becomes uncomfortable. If it is built on control, it will fall apart when things happen outside your control. True inner stability is built on identity and purpose, knowing who you are and why you are here. When your identity is anchored, you no longer panic when things shift because you are not tied to the surface. You are rooted beneath it. Trees do not remain standing during storms because the storm is weak, but because their roots are deep. Likewise, you are not called to avoid pressure, but to be so rooted in purpose that pressure cannot uproot you. Inner stability requires intentional strengthening. Just like muscles are built through resistance, inner strength is developed through moments when you could break, but choose to stand. Those moments train your emotional endurance and deepen your resilience. When you are stable on the inside, you do not rush to react. You do not allow temporary emotions to dictate permanent decisions, and you do not let external chaos rewrite your internal narrative. You develop a quiet confidence that is not loud or aggressive, but steady and unshaken. That steadiness becomes a shield against distraction because distraction feeds on instability. When you are unstable within, distractions easily sway you. But when you are rooted, distractions may come, but they cannot move you. Many people chase motivation, but neglect stability. Motivation gets you started, but stability keeps you consistent. Motivation is loud and exciting, but stability is quiet and consistent. Motivation rises when things feel good, but stability holds you firm when things don't. Inner stability is built through discipline, through staying committed to growth, even when emotions shift. It is choosing not to abandon your assignment because pressure showed up. Distractions often come disguised as reasons to stop, slow down, or doubt yourself. They whisper that pressure means you are on the wrong path, but pressure often proves you are on the right one. Diamonds are formed under pressure, and so is disciplined purpose. When you have inner stability, you become less reactive and more selective about where you place your attention. You stop pouring energy into conflicts that don't align with your calling because you understand that emotional energy is one of your greatest assets. People with inner stability are not easily provoked because they are not searching for external validation. They are not easily threatened because they understand their assignment. They don't need to announce their strength. It is felt through their consistency and calmness under pressure. Distractions lose interest in people who do not feed them with emotional reactions. Chaos loses its grip when it can no longer manipulate your peace. Inner stability is not built in comfort. It is built in moments when everything around you tries to shake you. It is choosing to remain grounded instead of scattered. It is committing to peace even when circumstances provoke anxiety. It is learning to breathe through pressure instead of breaking under it. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means responding to reality from a place of strength rather than fear. When your life becomes anchored in purpose, you gain the ability to hold your posture when everything tries to knock you off center. That posture is what separates those who are easily distracted from those who are deeply focused. You cannot control every situation, but you can control how deeply you are rooted. When your roots are deep, your reactions become calm, your vision becomes clear, and your decisions become intentional. You begin to navigate life differently, not from a place of survival, but from a place of authority. Inner stability allows you to walk through pressure with grace rather than fear. It positions you to lead your life instead of being led by distractions. And when your inner world is stable, your outer world may shake, but you remain unbothered because you are no longer built on what changes. You are built on what remains. There comes a moment in your journey where you realize that peace is not passive, it is powerful. It is not something you stumble into. It is something you choose. protect, and enforce. Many people mistake peace for avoidance or silence, but true peace is an active decision to refuse to let your spirit be disturbed by what does not align with your purpose. There will always be opportunities to engage in conflict, to react emotionally, to prove a point, but when you are training yourself to be unbothered, you begin to see that your peace is more valuable than being right. Peace is not found in the absence of opposition, but in the mastery of your response to it. It is the discipline of choosing calm over chaos, clarity over impulse, and vision over reaction. Peace becomes powerful when you understand what it costs. Every time you engage in meaningless arguments, give attention to negativity, or internalize someone else's opinion of you, you pay with your peace. And peace is too expensive to waste on every emotional invitation that comes your way. Many people say they want peace, yet they entertain drama, respond to provocation, and stay connected to people and environments that disrupt their spirit. Peace requires separation. It requires you to distance yourself from anything that consistently pulls you out of alignment. You cannot stay at peace while staying available to everything that disturbs it. Being unbothered is not emotional numbness, it is emotional clarity. It is knowing exactly what you will and will not allow into your mental and spiritual space. When you choose peace, you begin to recognize that some things only exist because you continue to feed them with your attention. Conflict needs engagement to survive. Drama needs an audience. Gossip needs reaction. Distraction needs your emotional energy to remain active. The moment you stop responding, these things start to lose their grip. This is why peace is powerful. It doesn't fight battles the way distractions expect. Peace does not argue, it withdraws. Peace does not chase validation, it stands firm. Peace does not beg to be understood, it keeps moving. And that silence, that refusal to participate, becomes louder than any comeback you could have given. When you are truly anchored in peace, even your stillness speaks with authority. Choosing peace requires a shift in mindset. You stop seeing every disagreement as a threat and start seeing it as a test of your alignment. You stop viewing silence as weakness and start seeing it as wisdom. You begin to view your attention as a resource, not something to be given freely to whatever demands it. Peace requires that you become intentional about where your mind rests. It asks you to filter your thoughts, monitor your reactions, and guard your atmosphere. It teaches you that you don't need to attend every conflict. You don't need to respond to every message. You don't need to defend yourself in every conversation. Sometimes the most powerful move is to let someone think whatever they want while you keep building in silence. People who carry peace carry authority. Their presence calms rooms because they are not moved by pressure. They do not rush to respond. They do not crumble under opinions. And they do not let external chaos dictate their internal posture. That is the core of being unbothered. Not that you don't feel, but that you are too focused to be easily moved. When peace becomes your priority, you become highly selective with your energy. You stop trying to be everywhere, respond to everything, and please everyone. You learn how to detach without bitterness, how to walk away without explanation, and how to remain calm even when others expect you to break. This kind of peace is built through practice. At first, it may feel difficult to walk away from conflict or stay silent when you are misunderstood, but the more you choose peace, the stronger it becomes. It becomes a shield that guards your emotions and a filter that protects your destiny. Chaos will still come, but it will no longer have access to your inner world. You will feel the pressure, but it won't penetrate your spirit. You will hear the noise, but it won't control your narrative. You will encounter distraction, but you will no longer surrender your peace to it. And when peace becomes your default posture, distraction loses its influence, and you move through life unbothered, not because everything is perfect, but because you have learned to anchor yourself in something greater than what tries to disturb you